Alright, so we're back with the last segment of tuning up Chris Matthews' guitar here. In the first video we went over, we repaired the scratchy pot noises and also soldered the wires back to the jack. We stripped some wires in there and got them all soldered back together. We had some loose connections in there and these pots were real scratchy when it was plugged in. So we got that fixed in the first video. In the second video, we just kind of did a deep clean on this thing. And I still haven't wiped the body down yet. I'll do all of that in the back and all of that after we get done with what we're going to do today. So today, we're going to do four things. We're going to check the angle of this neck here. Make sure there's no hard bow in it and it's not arched. We're going to adjust the string height with this bridge here. Then we are going to set the intonation, which is getting these saddles in place. And then the last thing we'll do is we'll set the pickup height. And we're going to do it all in that order. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to look at here is to make sure that this neck doesn't have any kind of bow in it. And the way that I usually do this is just kind of eyeball it down here like that. And you can see down here that that is pretty straight. I mean, there's not really any kind of bow in that on either side. Trying to hold that where you can see it on the camera. It would be a lot easier to see in person. You would be able to just look down that neck and see. Now that neck does not have really any bow to it. I mean, that's about as straight as a guitar neck as you're going to get. So we really don't even have to mess with that. But what you would do if it was bowed is you would take this little black cover off right here. And then there is basically an Allen-headed screw. So you would need an Allen wrench. Typically, I'm assuming that's what's in here. It's in most guitars. So you would need an Allen wrench to get in here and adjust the truss rod. And the truss rod is basically just a metal rod that goes through the length of this whole neck of the guitar. And by tightening that truss rod, you can take a guitar neck that's bowed a little bit and you can tighten that truss rod up and flatten that neck out. And same thing if your neck's arched, you can loosen it and bring it back. So some people like a little bit of bow in their neck. I like the neck to be just as straight as it can possibly be. I like to play fast, and to me that seems to be the best option to get a guitar to play the way that I want it to play. Now you could also take a straight edge, like a steel ruler, and put it on the length of over the frets. And make sure that you don't have this isn't going to be a good straight edge, but because it's just a tape measure. But if you had the neck was touching down here and it was touching down here and there was a little gap right around in here, well, you would know that you've got an arch in your neck. So you'd want to flatten it out a little bit until that straight edge is flat across those frets. I don't typically do that. I just eyeball it because it doesn't. That's not something that has to be exact anyway. Like I say, some people like a little bit of arch in the neck. I don't like it. A little bit of bow in the neck. I don't prefer any bow. I like the neck to be as straight as it can be, but I just do that by eyeballing it because, like I said, it's not an exact science. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hit this string height. Now you can see that those strings are super high. Now, I did that because I took all of this stuff off the bridge and this tail piece to the bridge and all that. I pulled all of that off. So putting it back on, I just haven't adjusted any of this yet. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these screws, drop these strings way down because they are super high. Now, that looks a lot better. So now they're not way sticking up real high off the fretboard or anything. And I'm going to feel them, and that feels pretty good. And so that probably totally just screwed the tuning of this guitar up. So now we've got it tuned, and putting tension on those actually raised those up just a little bit, but they're still pretty good. And Chris is a country singer, so I play a lot of lead guitar, so I like my strings just slammed as far down as I can get them. I'm not going to do that on his guitar. I'm going to kind of keep him up a little bit so he can still get that big boomy sound out of it, because that helps. It helps it to not sound... If you drop them down real low, it's not going to be a huge drastic change, but it will make the sound just a little tinnier, a little nasier, wiry, kind of, whatever word you want to use to describe it. But having the strings up a little bit kind of helps give it a little bit more kind of pushing a whole sound. And so Chris is going to be playing a lot of chords. Okay, so we're going to keep his strings not high, because he wants this guitar to be able to play lead, and it can absolutely do that at the string height we have it. But we're just not going to slam them down real low. So I like that string height. That looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape measure, and I'm just going to make sure that the bottom of each string is the same height away from the fretboard. So like the underside of the string of this big E string is the same distance from the fretboard as the underside of the little E string is away from the fretboard. Because I don't want this string real close and this string real high, or vice versa. And I can tell you right now, just from pushing on that little E string is way higher. So I'm just going to even go ahead and drop that side down a little bit more. And it's still high. That feels a little better. Back it off a little bit. And I will say, if you are setting your guitar up for lead and you want your strings real low and real easy to play and fast playing, knock your strings down way low and go through each of these strings. That's my fault. And go through each individual fret on each individual string and make sure you're not getting any crazy buzzing. When I hit that one, that was my finger that hit the string. So there's a little buzzing on that, but it ain't bad, and you're probably not going to be able to hear that little bitty amount of buzz coming through the amp. We'll check it. So to do the test the right way, you'd go all the way up to the last fret on each string. But it sounds good. We're looking fine. Alright, so now we're going to make sure that these strings are the same distance from the fretboard. So I'm going to take my tape measure, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure. I'm going to push against that fretboard. Well, it's kind of hard to get the good angle on here. I'm going to push against I'm going to set my tape measure against my fretboard right after that last fret right there. And I'm just going to see what that comes out to. And it's looking like the bottom of my guitar string, the bottom of my big E guitar string, is sitting at about 2.5 centimeters. So I'm going to come back around and check this side and make sure we're looking at about the same distance. And we're looking pretty good. So those are just about the same. And like I said, you're measuring the distance from the bottom side of the string, not the middle of the string or the top of the string. You're measuring from the bottom of the string to the fretboard. That's the distance you're measuring, and you're making sure that both of those are about the same. And they measure right at about the same. They feel right at about the same when I push on them. Okay, so we've got a good string height now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set this intonation on here. So the best way that I've found to do that is to check the natural harmonic. So we'll just say we'll go to the D string, and that natural harmonic needs to be the exact same note as when you push down on the 12th fret. And that sounds pretty close. That sounds pretty good. Let's hook in an amp and we'll check each one of these individually. Alright, so to check the intonation, we've got the amp plugged in just so we can hear the sound coming out of the guitar a little better. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check on each individual string, all 6 strings. I'm going to check the natural harmonic over the 12th fret, which is where I'm not actually pushing the string down, I'm just touching the string over the 12th fret to get that effect. That's your natural harmonic, and we're going to make sure that that natural harmonic is the exact same note that is played when you actually play the 12th fret. So now I'm actually going to play the 12th fret. I'm going to push it down. Okay, that sounds pretty close. We just want to make sure that it's not sharp or flat at all. So let's check this. That sounds pretty good. And I'll also say that when you do this, you probably don't want the guitar laying down like I have it, because you're putting a little bit of tension on the neck. So let's actually just do it this way. And you can hear that changed it a little bit. So now that natural harmonic is a little bit sharp in comparison to the note played. So I'm going to take my flathead screwdriver, and I believe I would tighten this thing and actually draw this saddle forward a little bit. I think that's the right way. I might be going the opposite way, but let's find out. That sounds way closer, so let's hit it just a little bit more. Just a little more. Let's try it. It's getting there. I can hear it getting closer. That sounds really good. So I'm going to go check all the other 5 strings now. Now that A string, to me, when I push on the 12th fret, sounds a little sharp compared to when I'm using the natural harmonic. So I'm going to actually loosen that one. I'm going to move that saddle back. I'm going to push that saddle back a little bit. So I know it's hard for me to get a good angle in here, but I actually brought this saddle back. Now I know people want these saddles sometimes to look all pretty and like, you know, like this one's forward and this one's in the middle and then this one's back and this one's forward, this one's in the middle and this one's back. Like it doesn't have to look pretty to make the guitar work right. And in fact, most of the time it doesn't. So there you go. That sounds good. Let's check the other 4. G string, or the D string's good. Let's check the G string. So just a very, very subtle adjustment on that one is all it's going to take. So just a little more. There we go. And again, the way I'm doing this is these saddles right here are what I'm adjusting, and the way you adjust them are these little screws underneath the strings. So you have to come at those screws kind of like this at a weird angle beside the guitar string, beside and under the guitar string and above the pickup. It's kind of hard to get to some of them, and you got to go between the guitar strings to get to them. So it's a little awkward sometimes, but you'll get it. Sounds pretty good. Let's check the little E string. So that sounds just a little sharp when I'm actually pushing down on. And sorry how obnoxiously loud all of this is with this guitar plugged in. I know that this will sound like horrible screeching right now. This metal screwdriver grinding against the guitar string. Alright, now let's try that one. That sounds pretty good. Alright, we're going to put another tune on it, tune it up, and then we're going to set the pickup height. Alright, so the last part of setting this guitar up that we're going to do is actually setting this pickup height. And the way we're going to do that, I like to set mine to about, well, I'll just show you how to do it. So what you're going to do, you're going to push down on the last fret of the big E string, first of all, and then we're going to do the little E string after this. But on your big E string, you're going to push down on that last fret, and you're going to measure from the poles on the guitar to, again, the underside of this guitar string. And what I like to shoot for is about 2.5 millimeters. They say 2.4, but 2.5 millimeters is just fine if you can get that. And so we are sitting, I mean, that's right about there. And I don't think I can show you that on the camera, but that is, I mean, that's right at 2.5. Really, I mean, it's like just under 2.5, so it's probably about 2.4 millimeters. So we'll come over here and we'll check this side, and this is just the measurement for the neck position pickup. Now let me check this one. I'm sorry you can't see this. It's kind of hard for me to angle it to where you can. And I mean, somehow miraculously that's just exactly where it needs to be without me touching it. So the neck angle on this thing and also that are dead on. The height of the neck position pickup. So now I'm going to do the same thing with this back pickup, and I can tell you right now, I think we're going to have to adjust this one. So same thing, push on the very last fret, and then we're going to measure. So when you have a guitar like this and you've got these two like single coils, double coil that makes a humbucker, compared to, I don't know if I can show you this or not, but compared to, yeah, I can't move my camera, but like my Les Paul has just got like this silver box that's the pickup, and then it's just got, on this pickup, it's got poles on the back side, and then on the front pickup it's got poles on the front side. On this, where you have these two different poles, you're gonna take this measurement from whichever part of that pickup is closer to the string when you're pushing down on that last fret. So for this guitar, it's going to be this front piece that we're going to measure from. Now, if you have one like I have on my Les Paul, then you're going to measure from those poles from the back. That's just where you're going to do it from, because that's what's going to pick up the sound. So let's take our measurement. And again, I know, I'm sorry I can't really show you this, but I hope I've explained it well enough. And yeah, that is way too high, or I'm sorry, way too much of a gap. So we are going to raise that up to try to compensate for that huge gap in there. So we'll go ahead and raise it up, and I'm going to kind of raise both sides up together, because that'll give me a better idea of where the pickup is actually sitting. Now let's try this again, and that looks a little better. That might be too high though. Yep, so we're going to back it off just a little bit. That's probably good right there. And we'll take another measurement. And really, you want to probably do this with a solid ruler, just so you can have a more accurate reading of what you're measuring, instead of using a tape measure like I'm doing. That looks pretty good. So let's take a measurement on this other side now. And again, I know you can't see what I'm doing. I'm sorry, I wish you could. I know it's super interesting. Now this side is pretty high as well, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to back this pickup back down in there a little bit. Let's see what I get now. Still a little bit high, so let's back it off a little bit more. And we're almost there. Back it off a little bit more. And just a little bit more. And let's try that. That ought to, yeah, it puts us pretty close. I went too far that time. I got carried away. So let's just bump this screwdriver. That looks better. We'll go with that one. So there's your pickup height. Now you can see that those are kind of got their own thing going on. They're set up for the guitar. And surprisingly, really, the making them flush with these pickup housings is almost right where they need to be. They're just sticking up out of those just a little bit. So anyway, now the point of doing that is that when you're playing your guitar, that you can have the same volume coming out of both of these pickups regardless of what position you have you're playing in, what pickup you're playing up. So let's check that. Make sure your volume and your tone knobs are all the way up, or at least they're identical to each other. I would just say turn everything all the way up. And that sounds pretty good to me. It might sound a little bassier on the coming out of the phone or whatever you're listening to this on, because when I'm in the rhythm position, there's more bass, so that might make it sound louder. But in person, they both sound like the same volume. So let's play a song on this thing and see what we get. Alright, so we've got Chris's guitar all cleaned up. We've got all the electronics working in it. And now we've got a good setup on here too. And I will stand true to this word that you can take any $200 or $300 guitar, put a great setup on it, just do what we did in this video, and that guitar will outplay any $2 or $3 or $4 or $5,000 guitar that does not have a setup. And your little $200, $300 guitar with the setup will run circles around that $1,000 guitar all day. So let's play this thing and see what we get. There's your little amateur hour lesson intro piece there at the end. I don't even remember how I played that. If I did remember it, I would have played it just now on this guitar. It's worth it. So anyway, that is the end of the 3-part series of the guitar overhaul for Chris Matthews. And man, I think Chris is going to fall in love with this thing. He's going to love playing it. And I'm glad I could do it for him. So anyway, hope these videos have helped you out. I hope this video was really useful to you. If it was, let me know. Leave a comment and tell me what you thought. If you thought it was awesome, if you thought it sucked, if you hated it, let me know, because that lets me know what to put out for the future. So thanks for tuning in. Play on.